Hi guys, it's Carissa and I am finally sitting down to do my Q&A today. I printed out every single question you asked between YouTube and Instagram. I have 4 pages of questions. My hope is that I get to every single one of them, so I'm going to try not to talk too fast, starting too fast. I got a couple of questions about what I was wearing on my lips in the video where I asked for questions. To be honest, I think it might have been this NYX Butter Lipstick in Little Susie, put on, wiped off, put on again, and then had a gloss over top of it because I couldn't figure out what to put on my lips that day. Where is your favorite place to shop and where's your favorite clothing store? I really do enjoy shopping at the grocery store. I know that sounds awful, but I love my Wegmans. I just like to walk around in there and look at stuff and just think about life. For clothing stores, I don't know, I would have to say thrift shops. The problem is it's not a guarantee that you're going to find anything. I guess it's not the case with regular stores either. But the biggest gamble in my opinion is getting it home and then washing it after it's clearly been washed 8,000 times and then I wash it once and ruin it. I really don't know how that happens, but I do it a lot. What's your favorite ice cream? These days I'm really enjoying the no sugar added Panda Paws. That's a big favorite right now. But in general, I would have to say mint chocolate chip. Stephen James asked, how did you get so awesome? I learned it from watching you. That's my brother-in-law, so no, really, he's awesome. I have a few questions about Etsy, or what I do for a living, and I just, spoiler alert, gave it away. Some people knew that I had an Etsy shop and didn't know what the name was. Some people knew that I worked from home and didn't know what I did. And other people just asked, what do you do? I know it sounds a little ridiculous, but I don't like to mix business and pleasure. So I don't bring up my Etsy shop often, at least not in the sense that I'm trying to get business from mentioning it here. It's not that I'm not proud of what I do. I guess I just don't want it to seem like I'm using this as a vehicle for more sales on my Etsy shop. I've been able to make a decent income off of it for the last 3 years. Prior to that, I was just really building my business and my brand and trying to establish myself. But I have had an Etsy shop for 5 years, and this year, on the 5-year anniversary, I hit 5,000 sales. So that was really cool to meet those 2 milestones on the same day. Sounded like I said milestones. They're exciting, but not that exciting. It's pretty mild. As far as how I make it a viable income, I would have to say I have made some videos on this. They're very dry, but I can link those below. But basically, I follow the same kind of business model that just about anyone who has a self-made business would tell you. You have to spend money to make money. You have to really put yourself out there. Blood, sweat, tears, all of that. I can't tell you how many nights I worked until 2 or 3 a.m. As far as Etsy's concerned, or making things to sell, you have to just follow trends. Constantly be watching the market, gauge yourself against your competition. I change my prices a lot to be competitive with what else is out there. I also have to consider what my competition is and how much of it there is. When I first started making what I make, nobody else really made it. And now there is a ton of competition. So I have to keep myself fresh, presentable, desirable among the rest of the competition, as well as make sure my customer service is tip-top. And I deliver what I promise. I make sure that I tell people what they can expect out of me, and if they're not happy for any reason, which isn't very often, but if it happens, I do what I can, bend over backwards to make sure that they are. You can't please everybody. If you want to know more about that, just start a YouTube channel. So I take the pictures, run shop maintenance, create the work, cure it, pack it, ship it, track it. I do all of it. So it is a lot of work. It is very time consuming. People have a tendency to think that when you work from home, you are somehow able to relax and not do as much, but I'm actually busier than I would be if I had a job out of the house. I just get to pick the times of day when I do what I do. And sometimes it's hard because I want to just stop working so I can go take a nap or go out to lunch with a friend, and I have to really make sure that I'm getting things done on time. I will link my Etsy shop below. Again, I don't like to talk about it very often. I'm not trying to hide it from you guys or anything, but I guess maybe I am a little. But the bulk of what I do is I paint. I do hand painted lettering for words, phrases, initials, dates, things like that as a keepsake for couples who are newly engaged or getting married or have been married. I don't know what people are giving them as presents for, but they are, so that's the majority of the time. That's what it is. It's for an upcoming nuptial event. Different sex, same sex, couples who hate each other, who got divorced and remarried, I don't care. I love love, and I make work for it. I have a couple of questions about adoption. Nothing against anyone who does ask about this, but I will tell you, if you know someone in your personal life who's having trouble conceiving or who doesn't have a child after a couple of years of being married, please don't ask them about adoption, because it's a very difficult thing to come to terms with. I'm not saying it isn't a wonderful thing and it isn't something that couples want to do, but I think that it seems like, oh, why don't you just adopt? But it's an incredibly emotionally draining process. There's a lot of paperwork, there's a lot of red tape, and it can end up not working out and you don't get your money back. So just keep in mind that it sounds like a great solution, but it's not always a comfortable thing for couples to discuss. How long have you been trying to conceive, and would you ever adopt? Well, Mike and I have been married for 10 years and we have welcomed a pregnancy ever since the start of our marriage. So we have actively been trying to conceive for about 7 or 8 of those years, and that has been doctor assisted for about half of that time. Would you ever adopt, and would you ever consider adoption? If so, are you open to different nationalities? We would really love to adopt. There's an awful lot that goes along with that, and it's a very long process, and the little bit that we've looked into it, it's also really expensive. So we're trying to figure things out and try and plan ahead for what we may or may not be making a reality in the near future, but we're completely open to that. We don't have any issue with nationality or race or gender or any of that. Not a question, but I love your freckles. Thank you. They're from the sun. And me. If we weren't married, would you marry me? Knowing now what my breath smells like in the morning? And that is the question from my darling husband. And the answer is yes, 1,000 times yes, no matter what your breath smells like. Always. Every time, over and over again. Speaking of Mike, I have some questions about him and our relationship. What does your husband think about you making videos? He loves it. He doesn't really understand it and he doesn't really watch them, but he encourages it, and he loves to watch the ones with our pets and us together, like on trips, things like that. We like to go back and watch those from time to time. Is he sweet or romantic with you? Absolutely. In fact, I am kind of the Grinch in our relationship, and sometimes first thing in the morning he's hugging me and giving me kisses and just really all up in my business, and I'm just trying to make some coffee and like start breathing normally. Does anybody else breathe weird when they first wake up? Like, I breathe really heavy, like I'm angry that it's morning. How did you meet your husband and how long have you been together? I met this handsome man when I was 14 or 15 at a school dance. We both grew up around here, and we both went to different middle schools that ended up going to the same high school together. So there was a dance just before the fall so that we could all sort of meet the other students and intermingle and cause drama and all that. How do I say this without sounding too complicated? My then boyfriend's best friend was Mike's cousin. So we kind of met each other in like a, hey, this is my cousin, this is my friend, how are you guys doing, who are these people sort of situation. And I just completely fell in love with his face. And he claims he felt the same way about me, but then he noticed that I had a boyfriend and was a little bit upset about that. We started dating on and off in our late teens when we were like 17 or 18, and we have been together for about 15 years, 10 of those married. What does your husband do for a living? He is a finance sales manager. You like how I have no idea what his actual title is? For a Toyota dealership. And he's really good at his job, and I'm really proud of him. I have some questions about our pets because, as you may or may not know, we have a lot of them. How old are your fur babies? Well, I don't know because we have so many of them. We don't really celebrate birthdays, but I will tell you that I don't like to think about it either because I get hysterical and don't want to think about how old my pets are. They're all relatively young, but it still gets me all worked up. Have you had them since they were babies? A lot of them, yes, but we've taken in a lot of pets and rehabbed them and, meant to give them back or find them new homes and just kept them. Some of them were adopted. So we do have a few pets that we've had since they were born, but others we have also had just since they needed us. Do all the animals sleep with you guys? Well, the dogs both sleep with us, but they both sleep right next to Mike and they steer completely clear of me. I don't know if it's because I have a tendency to thrash or push them away, or they just like how warm he is, but they stay away from me, and that's how I prefer it because I don't even like my own skin to touch when I sleep. Like, I would never sleep on my own hand I can't. So I sleep like a, chalk outline from a crime scene, and they must not want to disturb that. Every now and then the cats join us, and that is 4 animals in the bed, and the cats do not provide me with any personal space. They sleep right under my nose. How did you become such an animal lover? I was just born that way. My first word was doggy. Okay, how many pets do you have? I've gotten that question a couple of times. We have 2 dogs, Bowser and Lucy. Bowser was purchased as a puppy. Lucy was adopted. They're both Shih Tzus. We have 2 cats, a male and a female, long hair, domestic, whatever they are. They're both adopted, Fritz and Nermal. Nermal's name used to be Sophie, but we changed it to Nermal a few years later because it just suited her better because she's a Nermal. We have 2 tortoises, and they're both Redfoots. One of them we purchased, his name is Samson, and we also have a tortoise named Buster, who we just call Bus, I don't know, that's just her nickname. We consider her adopted. Mike found her at, I think it was an aquatic supply store. Someone had dropped her off there. Her shell had grown misshapen because she probably wasn't getting proper nutrition and was in a poor habitat, and she was missing one of her back feet. And when Mike asked the guy what happened, he said he didn't know. So he felt like he just couldn't stand to leave her there. We have a Euromastix lizard named Scratchy, and Mike purchased him. He was another one that we had seen at a lizard specialty shop just for lizards and snakes, and he was on a super discount, and Mike asked why, and the guy said he's gonna die in a week, so if you want him, I'll mark him down. He doesn't eat anything. And that was 12 years ago, and he's eating just fine. I love my Scratchy. If you have a child and you want to get them a lizard, please consider getting a Euromastix because they are so gentle and docile and sweet, and they just lick your fingers, and they're just the cutest, sweetest, most wonderful things. We also have a terrarium where Mike keeps frogs, toads, and a lizard that he has found in the yard. If he finds a frog that is missing a leg, whether it's just due to a genetic defect or maybe a lawnmower clipped them, he'll take them in because he knows they won't survive very well out in the stream by our house. So he'll take them in, we feed them crickets and make sure they've got plenty of water and clean space to live in. We have a big fat toad who many of you have probably seen on Instagram. Mike calls her Fatso. It's not very nice, but that's what he calls her. We also have an eyelash gecko who lives in there, and we named her Groot. She is missing her tail because the woman who owned her said that her cat was terrorizing it and took the tail off. So we have Groot. Of course, we have our 4 beautiful chickens. There is Belina and Sissy, Yoshi, and Penny. And lastly, this is Humphrey. Humphrey is my hedgehog, and he is named after a character from a cartoon that was on Nickelodeon's Pinwheel when I was a baby, and my mom used to sing the little song to me. I'll link that below in case you want to cry, because for some reason it makes me cry really bad. You're not sleepy anymore? How many tattoos do you have? I have 4. I have one on my lower back, which wasn't called a tramp stamp back then. I wouldn't have gotten it if I knew. I have a really faded Hello Kitty on my foot that I need to get touched up, but it was such a horrible experience to have my foot tattooed that I might just let that look terrible forever. I have my infertility awareness symbol on my wrist, which is really hard to show you for some reason from this angle, and then this new piece with all the lace on it, which will be a full sleeve eventually. I just want to make my arms a lot smaller before I do that. Say goodbye, Hove! What social issue are you most passionate about? I feel like this isn't the one that I'm the most passionate about necessarily, but it's the one that bothers me the most lately. There's this huge movement for women to accept their bodies, and for plus size women especially to be able to embrace what they look like and to go against the traditional beauty standards. Somehow a whole bunch of people have gotten it into their heads that it's okay to put down other body types in order to make their own feel more validated. So just for example, in All About That Bass, that song could have a really great message if she wasn't putting down skinny bitches. I think it's a really poor way to make your point that you want to stand out as being beautiful even though you're not what the traditional standard is, when you're going to put down other groups of people who look other ways for it. I think that that makes everyone ugly. After everything you have been through trying to conceive, what gives you the energy to keep fighting? Honestly, I feel like we just always make progressions and we keep improving, and we are still well within the age range to try. And I met and fell in love with and married a man that I want to make a father because he wants to have a family, and I think that if there's anyone who should be able to be a dad, it's that man. Which eyelash curler do you use? I use the Japanesque, this one. I don't know what model this is, but I do highly recommend Japanesque. I like how this is a more straight line than what other curling ones are. Some are too C-shaped, and that doesn't fit my eye shape or contour very well. And with Japanesque eyelash curlers, all you have to do is register on their website and email them when you need new refill pads, and they send them to you for free. How do you get your eyelashes so long? I used to have the stubbiest eyelashes, and all I can think is that I wasn't taking care of my face. I was sleeping with my makeup on, and I wasn't making an effort to moisturize my face really well before bed. I think if you have quality moisturizers, you don't even have to get any of those lash serums or any of that stuff. My diet and my beauty routine are the two things that have helped my lashes so much. What is your favorite makeup brand and product from that brand? Why would you ask me such a cruel question? Okay, so I've been having a moment lately with Too Faced. I've just been so in love with them, and I think that a lot of people could agree. And if I had to leave the house with only one thing on my face, I think the thing that makes the most impact is mascara, I guess. So I would say this Too Faced Better Than Sex mascara. That's not what I have on today, though. Don't my lashes look banging today? I have this new Unique Moodstruck 3D Fiber, the new formula. I'll have a video coming out on that if I haven't posted it already. I also really love this new Too Faced foundation, the Born This Way foundation. Oh, okay, I'm done. If you could only buy makeup from one brand for the rest of your life, what brand would it be? Okay, I know I just raved about Too Faced, but there's other aspects to their line that isn't necessarily my favorite. I would probably say Kat Von D, because her products are just impeccable. They're fantastic. I have never used something by that brand and hated it, I don't think. Well, I'm not a huge fan of liquid lipstick, but I still have a bunch of them. If you're going to have one cosmetic surgery totally free of cost, what would it be and why? Okay, I'm sorry, this is such a cop-out answer, but I would like to elect that if this free cosmetic surgery was available to me, I would ask to give it to someone who needs it, who's had a birth defect or something that makes them feel really bad about themselves or insecure. If there's some way I could gift my surgery to that person so that they could, you know, hold their head up high and feel good for the rest of their lives, that's what I would do. I have a bunch of questions about YouTube. Do you plan on doing more vlogs? I would like to. It didn't seem like it was something that was very popular. It was some of my lowest viewed videos, and not that I care about that so much, but I kind of like to get a sense of what you guys like and put them out there. In the startup days, how did you deal with having subscribers, even if you knew they weren't really watching for what the channel was intended for, or how the goofy comfort levels are in sharing your life and your TTC journey to an audience that you can't control? Well, I started out with a weight loss channel, and my weight was at the highest it had ever been, and I consider that to be one of the most embarrassing things about me. It was just putting out there that I was overweight and I needed to fix it. So I think when you go from sharing one of the most embarrassing things you can to another really embarrassing thing or really emotional thing, it's just an easy transition. I also think that it's just part of my personality. I have a tendency to be okay with opening up. It's sort of on that level of being able to have self-deprecating humor and like, oh, haha, let's laugh about something that sucks about me, I guess. I don't know. It's maybe not the healthiest way of looking at things, but that's just sort of how that worked out. I definitely encourage people who are on a TTC journey to join the YouTube community because there's nothing else like it. I think it's wonderful. Provided that you and Mike do more traveling, would you ever do a meetup? I guess so. I don't know how many people would go. Will you do more thrift hauls? Absolutely. I have not been doing very well at the thrift store lately. A lot of the times I leave with non-clothing items, or I'll leave with like one shirt, and that's not enough to do a haul on. Do you worry about running into people from high school when you're in town? And do most of your family and friends know about your YouTube popularity? This may come as a surprise to you, but I do not make my YouTube channels known to my family and friends. There are people who have found out about it here and there over the years, but I do not publicly announce that I have a YouTube channel. I don't know why. I guess it just feels weird to I know I do it so they could find it at any point, but I even had a friend a few years ago tell me, you know, I think you should start one of those beauty channels on YouTube and do makeup tutorials. And I was like, oh, maybe. And I never said anything. I know that sounds so rotten, but I don't know, I'm shy. But the answer is yes, I do worry about running into people that I went to high school with, just because I don't want to run into people I went to high school with most of the time. Do you? Right? Would you do a house tour? Maybe. Yeah, I guess I don't really have a reason not to, other than I'd have to clean the house. Will you do a draw my life video? Do people still want to see those? I guess I could try that. It seems really stressful, but maybe I will try that. I don't know. Have I answered a single? I feel like the last like 10 questions I've just been like, Lisa Marie TTC asks, if you ever met Medeiros, what would you ask her? And I would ask her, what are the secrets to your ways? Because you sound fantastic. And she also asked if I would be her Medeiros, and I already am. Also, when are you coming to Chicago? Whenever you want. What are your TV guilty pleasures? Any reality shows? Big Brother? I have never seen an episode of Big Brother. Well, I've seen I saw a part of it a really long time ago and I was confused, so I didn't ever watch it again. But I don't really watch TV. Any television programming that I watch really ends up being seen through like Netflix or Hulu while I'm working, and I'm listening to it more than I am actually watching it. But Mike and I have been watching Bob's Burgers together during dinner, and why did I wait so long to watch that? It's so good. Did you and Mike ever watch the 6 Feet Under series? No. I watched it because I was such a fan of Michael C. Hall from having watched Dexter, and Mike did watch that with me. But I felt like I was missing him and I wanted to see more of him. And that sounds so creepy to say it out loud like that. But I just wanted to see, and it was one of the most highly rated series of all time. I just have a lot of anxiety issues and issues when it comes to mortality. And I was worried that a show like that would trigger some of that. But for some reason, it doesn't at all. And I even asked a few people who had recommended it to me if they thought it would be a problem. And they said, honestly, no. And I loved that show, and I was so scared to watch the finale that I watched it at 9 a.m. on a weekday because I thought, well, I'll cry less if I watch it in the morning. No, I cried my face off. I actually think my eyeballs came out that day because I was crying so hard. Have you ever met a celebrity? I don't think so. And if I did, it must not have been a big enough deal because I don't remember. Why is your face so pretty? Because of these faces right here. My grandmother's, and my mom, and my dad. I've been asked a few times if I have ever been outside the US or been abroad. I did go to Japan when I was 13 or 14 and stayed with my grandmother out there. When I was 15 or 16, I went to Spain, and I've been to Canada many times because Canada is right there. If you could live anywhere on the planet, where would it be? I would live in a place. Tell me where this is, okay? Just, if you know of this place, tell me and I will move there. I want it to be like 60 to 70 degrees at all times, closer to 60 with a nice breeze, but the sun's out. And it does rain sometimes, so I can have a nice nap in the rain. And there are no major natural disasters that could ever kill you. And it snows like one day, so you can experience the snow. You're going to say North Carolina, aren't you? Where do you see yourself in 5 years? I honestly I thought about that. I thought about where I was 5 years ago, and it was in a similar place. Same house, same lifestyle for the most part, and it's only improved. I would obviously like major changes to happen in my life, like having a family, but honestly, I'm so grateful for what I have that if I'm in the same place in 5 years, I really can't be upset about that. I have some questions about keto here. I have questions like, what were your first steps in starting keto? And do you have any staples for beginners? My opinion is that when you first start, you need to really educate yourself. There's a lot you need to learn about making sure that you're supplementing your electrolytes and what quantities of fat and protein you should be eating every day. You should really learn about the science of why it works and read people's personal testimonials. But when it comes to first starting, I say go for it. Go all out. If you love the idea of eating cheese and pepperoni almost all day, every day, just eat that. Just eat whatever it is that will make it easier for you to transition into that way of eating. How do you stop yourself from overeating or ruining your diet? I don't look at it that way. I do overeat sometimes. Most of the time, I just try and refocus myself. If I feel like I'm slipping out of control, I try and remember why I'm doing the things I'm doing, why I started, and how disappointed I feel when I do crash and burn, so to speak. So that keeps me in check. And what do you personally do if you hit a plateau or you aren't losing much? I make sure I start tracking again. I make sure I'm measuring properly, because you eyeball stuff and it sort of gets bigger and bigger, and you have no idea after a while how much damage you could be doing with just those little extra bits. I also try not to be too crazy about the scale. I make sure I'm getting enough water in and just try and act like I'm starting fresh. And there's something really empowering about it that I look forward to, and that usually helps me. I think with keto, the biggest piece of advice that I have that I've always heard and really take to heart is to beware of your success, because if you're doing it, it works. It's not a magic pill. You do still have to do the work, but it works really well and really quickly. And I think sometimes that can make you feel like you're doing well enough to slip up and to kind of let things go and loosen things up here and there, and that can create stalls and plateaus for sure. I remember seeing a video of you hula hooping. Oh my goodness gracious. Are you still doing that? I have not been, but I did just dig my hula hoop out recently in hopes to start using it again soon. I can't believe you saw that. I hope that's still not up somewhere. It probably is. Where did your mom get your name from, and how often do you have to correct people who pronounce it as Carissa? Pretty often, and I pick my battles. If I'm just meeting somebody once in like a casual setting that I'll never see again, I don't correct them, I guess. I don't have it in me anymore. I think I've asked my parents many times where they got my name from, and I think the answer was always different or just not a cool enough answer that I remembered the story, but I do know that my name was almost Jamie, so there's that for you. What was life like in your 20s, and if you could go back in time, what advice would you give yourself? My early 20s especially were spent working like a mad woman. I was trying to climb up all these corporate ladders and be perfect and be the best, and I was just really working really hard, and I was taking a lot of pride in my work, but I was working myself into the ground. And what advice would you give yourself? I would have given myself in my early 20s the advice to not get into credit card debt. It wasn't even that much, but it was a lot for how much money I was making at the time. So I was constantly feeling like I was suffocating in debt. So I had multiple jobs, and I was always trying to go back to school and better myself and get myself into a better position. I would have just told myself not to get in that debt in the first place. Although I think it's healthy for everyone to experience a little bit of that so that you can avoid it in the future and that you know better in the future. I also would have said get yourself some help for the PCOS that you don't know you have that's going to ravage your life in a few years. And share your favorite Hello Kitty possession. I don't know if this counts because I don't know if it's Hello Kitty, but it was always assumed that it was the case. When I was a baby, this was gifted to me from somebody who lived in Japan in my family. It might have been my grandmother, I'm not sure. But it was a hat that I don't think somebody made. I think it was actually purchased. So it was like a knockoff Hello Kitty, because there's some kind of tag on the inside that You can't read it anymore. This was just the start. I also had Hello Kitty curtains in my nursery when I was a baby that said Caddy on them. And I remember just laying in my crib and staring at those curtains. And so there's always been something very comforting about Hello Kitty to me. I'll always love her. Thank you so much for all of your questions. I tried to really focus on the ones that I had multiples of. I'm sorry if I missed yours in any way. It feels weird to have been sitting here talking about myself for this long, so I'm gonna go now. But thank you for watching, guys. I'll talk to you soon. Bye!